think we're live. I see the circle of death going. I don't know. Just waiting for the circle. There we go. There's the chat thing. All right. What's up, everyone? I'm going to try to do these a lot more, I guess. I'm working on trying to set up a Discord thing to kind of just have on, I guess, while I'm narrating so people can hear me mess up a lot. I don't know. But I'm warming up. I'm still continuing on with Eric Danhoff's Revenant Son. I'm halfway through, I think. I'm trying to push to get this thing done. But, day job, working from home, kids in the house, everyone's home. It's ridiculous. So, just chipping away the best that I can, I think, is what we all can do. Let me see here. Stream health. All right. I think this is working, so we're just going to keep on going. I see no one in the chat. I have no idea how to read this thing. But we're just going to do. So today I'm warming up with, I don't know how much I'll read through here, just a little bit to kind of get, in the flow here. But I am going to read a little bit of CARNOSAUR by Harry Adam Knight. Now, this is the re-release in 1990, I think, book when the movie came out, the Roger Corman flick came out. And right on the tails of Jurassic Park. Interestingly enough, the book CARNOSAUR was written in 1984, and when did Jurassic Park come out? Not 1990. So CARNOSAUR was written in 1984, and Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park wasn't written until like 1990, I think. It didn't come out to 1990. So a little bit of trivia there. But then CARNOSAUR the movie came out on the heels, I believe, of Jurassic Park, because that's what Roger Corman does. So this book was 93. So I don't have it all in my head. I don't know when Jurassic Park came out. But when did that come out? Like 92, 93, at the same time? All right, here we go. So we're just gonna. So 10 years later, 9 years later, from the initial release of CARNOSAUR, this version is released. So I'm trying to track down the rights to this one. I would love to actually narrate it. So I think Tor is originally a Tor book. I think the rights went to them, and then I'm trying to track them down. The rights went to the author, but then the author passed away, and the rights are all caught up and stuff. It's goofy, but I'm going to try. All right, here we go. CARNOSAUR, Chapter 1. Des. Is it Des or Des? I don't know. Des, wake up. Des Cartwright tried to ignore his wife's hand tugging on his shoulder. He wanted desperately to sink back down into his sleep. He'd been having a wonderful dream, and being wrenched out of it was almost too much to bear. "Leave me alone," he growled, still half asleep. "Des," she cried again, shaking him harder. "The chickens! Something's upsetting them." "Something's always upsetting them," he muttered. But he was fully awake now, and the dream was fading from his mind like the tantalizing aftertaste of some beautiful flavor. He couldn't remember what the dream had been about, but he felt a sharp sense of loss. Feeling strangely sad, he turned over on his back and listened. Julie was right. The chickens were in a hell of a state. What was scaring them, he wondered. A fox? Or one of the local dogs? But how could any animal have got in? He'd checked the fences only a couple of days ago. He sighed, sat up, and switched on the bedside lamp. The alarm clock said it was only 2:17 a.m. Shit. He got up and put on his dressing gown. By the way, this is written by this author's an Australian, so there's gonna be some terms here that us Americans wouldn't call a robe a dressing gown, but excuse me. It's all part of getting all the crud out. Oh, man. Okay. Julie was sliding back under the covers, eyes screwed shut against the light. He felt a momentary wave of revulsion wash through him. "Fat, lazy cow," he said to himself, as he looked at her, and then immediately felt guilty. It wasn't her fault. and a poppy seed. My mouth. What the heck? Oh, man. It wasn't her fault she'd been sick the last couple of days. Sorry, days, years. It wasn't her fault she'd been sick the last couple of years and put on so much weight. I still love her, he told himself defiantly. But he knew it wasn't true. He hadn't felt anything like love for her in years, even before she got sick. He tried to shut out these unwanted thoughts as he walked through the kitchen. The chickens were continuing their frantic squawking. If anything, they were making more noise than before. Then he heard a crash as a heavy object hit the floor in one of the sheds. A cage had been overturned. He stopped thinking of foxes. It had to be one of the local dogs. A big one. Or perhaps more than one. He went to the cupboard by the back door and took out a 12-gauge shotgun. He loaded it with cartridges kept in a kitchen drawer and then went outside. It was a warm August night, and the air smelled of summer. It brought back memories of summer nights long ago as he walked across the yard towards the 3 large buildings that housed the chickens. Unexpectedly, a fragment of the dream flashed through his mind. He had a mental image of a girl's face. She seemed very familiar, but he couldn't remember who she was. Was she someone from his school days, he wondered? A girl he'd had a crush on? Or was she merely a figment of his imagination? The feeling of familiarity could be a trick on the mind. The feeling of familiarity could be a trick of the mind. Dreams were funny things. The noise was coming from the middle shed. He opened the door and went inside. The long, narrow building contained over 1,000 birds, and every one of them seemed to be squawking. Cartwright paused at the doorway and stared down the central aisle. The lights were on, as they always were, and he could see all the way to the end of the building, but there was no sign of any animal. Holding the shotgun ready, he walked to the top of the next aisle. In the distance, he could see that a whole section of cages had been knocked over. They had been ripped open, and there were feathers all around. He began to walk toward the wreckage, curious to see what had caused all the damage. He didn't feel afraid. He was confident that the shotgun was adequate protection for any dog, no matter how large. And by the look of the cages, it was large. He tried to think of anyone nearby who owned a large Alsatian or Doberman, but he couldn't. Then he became aware of the smell. He stopped walking. Suddenly, he was very frightened, but he had no idea why. The smell was unlike anything he had ever experienced before, but it produced an atavistic terror within him. He started to shake. He knew he had to get out of there. He turned and began to walk quickly back up the aisle toward the doorway. The skin on his back tingled unpleasantly, and he could feel his scrotum tightening, but he fought the urge to break into a panic-stricken run. "Keep calm," he told himself. "Once you get outside, you'll be safe." It stepped out between a gap in the row of cages, blocking the aisle ahead of him. Cartwright froze. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. It stood about 6 feet tall, and was the color of dried blood. Cartwright was absurdly reminded of some kind of giant plucked bird, like an ostrich. But this was definitely no ostrich. It had the head of a reptile. The partly open mouth revealed rows of curved, pointed teeth, and the eyes that coolly regarded him from beneath two bony protective ridges were also reptilian. They were cunning eyes, too, almost intelligent, and this scared Cartwright more than anything, even more than its claws. He'd noticed the claws right away. The claws on its forelimbs were bad enough. There were 3 on each hand, and they were huge, but it was the claws on the creature's feet that made it seem that the thing had been specifically designed by some sick mind. The middle toe on each 3-toed foot pointed upward to form a 7-inch long natural blade, like a scythe. Man and creature stood about 10 feet apart. 10 feet. Social distance. Staring at each other. The man was aware of several things simultaneously. His pounding heart, the slippery feel of the shotgun between his sweaty hands, and the curious, bellows-like motion of the creature's chest as it breathed rapidly in and out. The fetid stink of its body, and above all, the awful surety that he was going to die. They stared at each other for a full 30 seconds, though it seemed much longer to Cartwright. Then the creature's tail, which had been sweeping back and forth restlessly over the floor, suddenly stiffened and arose into the air behind it. This had the effect of pulling the upper body back until the creature was standing almost as straight as a man. Even as part of Cartwright's mind began to register this new development, the creature charged at him. Emitting an ear-splitting screech, it covered the 10 feet with just 2 strides of its powerful hind legs. The claws on its forelegs grasped Cartwright by the shoulders and lifted him into the air. At the same time, one of the hind feet rose up and slashed him down the length of his body. The scythe-like middle claw opened up Cartwright from neck to groin before he even realized what was happening. Then he was lying on his back on the floor and staring up at the lights on the ceiling. He felt terribly cold. He was dimly aware that the shotgun had gone off, but he had no idea if he'd hit the creature. Perhaps the noise had scared it away. He wondered how badly he was hurt. He didn't want to look and see. The creature's head suddenly moved into his field of vision. It was bending over him. As the head came closer, he felt its hot breath on his face. The stink was awful. The teeth closed on the neck. The teeth closed on his neck, and Cartwright knew nothing more. All right. That's the beginning of CARNOSAUR. Hard to find book. And it's by Harry Adam Knight. If you can find it, grab it. It's fantastic. And I'm actually surprised at the quality of this paperback. But I am going to do my best to try to find the rights to this thing. And I would love to narrate it myself. But I would love it if this appeared, I mean, not necessarily maybe physical copies, because that's another whole other story. But, if somebody could find the rights to this and re-release it. I mean, you can find it online. You can find, copies of it. But I'd love it if it's got a legit release. So we'll see what happens. All right, well, I need to get to work. So that was a good little warm-up. I didn't go as long as last time. So I felt pretty good about that. I feel pretty good tonight. So, hope all of you are staying safe, staying well, and staying sane. We all need to stay sane in this time. So, thank you for watching whenever you see this. And, hope all of you join me again. I'll try to do this more often, grab something off the shelf and read it. And, I don't know, it helps me. So, figured we're all stuck in our houses. I would just start doing this more so you guys can see, see me so we can hang out in this way. So, all right, I'm going to get to work on Revenant Son. And really, I need to dig to get this thing done this week because I need to edit Man, True Man. A lot on my plate here. So, I will talk to all of you next time. Have a great night.